Welcome everyone. So this video is on orbital cellulitis and it is made for third year MBBS students. So to begin with, what is orbital cellulitis? So you can define orbital cellulitis as a infection of the soft tissues of the orbit, and this does not include the eyeball or the globe. Soft tissue infection, like all those tissue that is situated posterior to the orbital septum, when they get infected, we call it as orbital cellulitis. To make things more clear, you can see in this diagram that as the arrow suggests, the orbital septum, that is, as you can see, that white thing, that is the orbital septum, and that separates the eyelid from the posterior part of the whatever is posterior to the eyelid is separated from the eyelid by that septum. So when there is infection of structures present posterior to the orbital septum, excluding the globe, we call it as orbital cellulitis. Moving on, so what causes orbital cellulitis? What is the etiology of orbital cellulitis? So, a person can acquire orbital cellulitis through three ways. It can be through exogenous infection, endogenous infection, or extension of disease from neighboring structures. So, exogenous infection is like if there is some trauma, the patient has a penetrating injury, or following operations like evisceration, dacrocystectomy, orbitomy, or enucleation. All of this can be a way in which the infection can enter into the orbit. Other way is through endogenous infection, which means that the infection is spreading from elsewhere in the body. Like it is a metastatic infection from, it could be a metastatic infection from the breast abscess, or it could be septicemia, or it could be from thrombophlebitis of the legs, or purpural sepsis. Also, what can happen is that the disease can spread, it can extend directly from neighboring structures. Like it can spread from the paranasal sinuses, from the teeth, face, lips, or the intracranial cavity. Now, when I say paranasal sinuses, most commonly people acquire orbital cellulitis because of ethmoidal sinusitis. The infection from the ethmoidal sinus spreads to the orbit and causes orbital cellulitis. So, what are the causative organisms? Which organisms are responsible for orbital cellulitis? Among this list, the most common is Staphylococcus aureus, or the MRSA now, followed by all the other organisms like Streptococcus pneumoniae, Streptococcus pyogenes, and Haemophilus influenzae. Next, so what are the clinical features? When a patient presents to you, how do you find out if the patient is suffering from orbital cellulitis? So, most commonly, the symptoms that patients will come with is that they'll be having swelling, and there will be severe pain which aggravates on movement. Also, because it's an infection, the patient will be having fever, nausea, vomiting, prostrations. Also, there could be associated vision loss and diplopia. So, what are the symptoms? Swelling, severe pain which aggravates on movement, fever, nausea, vomiting, and prostrations, vision loss, and diplopia. Could be associated with vision loss and diplopia, which is seen like in advanced cases only we'll see vision loss and diplopia. Then moving on, next is signs. So when you examine the patient, what will you find? Uh, Mostly what we see is that the patient will be having swollen eyelids. Okay, it will be so swollen that like it will be hard. It's characterized by a woody hardness, and it will be red. Next is chemosis of conjunctiva. What is chemosis of conjunctiva? It is the um, swelling of the conjunctiva, edema of the conjunctiva. That is chemosis of conjunctiva. So because of this edema, the conjunctiva will protrude and it becomes exposed and it becomes necrotic. Then the patient will have axial proptosis. So axial proptosis means the eyeball is displaced anteriorly, like it's just directly protruding forward. It's not protruding towards the sideways or vertically up or down, like anteriorly, directly forward. It is protruding out. That is axial proptosis. If the patient is having some abscess or some mass from the side or from below, from the walls or from the floor or the roof, in such cases, the eye would be protruding towards specific directions. But in orbital cellulitis, what we see is that the eyeball will be protruded anteriorly. That is axial proptosis. Then there will be restriction of ocular movements. Then there will be presence of relative afferent pupillary defect. Now, what is this relative afferent pupillary defect? So, in this, what is this? Is that like when you examine the patient, you shine light with a torch into the patient's eye. Ideally, in a normal person, what will happen is that when you shine light, one of the pupil, the eye into which you're shining the light, that pupil will constrict, and along with that, the opposite eye also pupil will also constrict. But in a patient with orbital cellulitis, when you constrict, I mean, when you flash the light on the affected eye, the pupil will not constrict, and the opposite eye pupil also will not, the normal eye pupil will also not constrict. And when you so this is relative afferent pupillary defect. So the pupil is not constrict. Now and then when you shine it on the normal eye, that eye will constrict, but the opposite eye, I mean the affected eye will be non-responsive and it will not constrict, even though the normal eye is constricting in response to the light. So it shows that there is some underlying optic neuropathy. There is something wrong with the optic nerve. Like the infection has affected the optic nerve. Also, there could be it can also be because there is a central retinal artery occlusion. Okay. So next is that on fundus examination, what you will see is that the retinal veins will be congested and there will be papilledema. What is papilledema? It is edema of the optic disc. Next is complications. So, what are the complications you see in orbital cellulitis? The orbital cellulitis is actually a very serious condition. So, it can have like really severe complications. So, there is ocular complications, there's orbital complications, and there is temporal parotid abscess formation, intracranial complications, and it can lead into generalized septicemia. So, ocular complications include vision loss, optic neuritis, central retinal artery occlusion. I just mentioned now that optic neuritis, central artery occlusion are the reasons for which that we find I mean, relative afferent pupillary defect, RAPD, on in the patient on examination. So, ocular complications include vision loss, optic neuritis, central artery occlusion. Next is orbital complications. So in orbital complications, the patient could have subperiosteal abscess or orbital abscess. So subperiosteal abscess means the pus is getting collected between the bony wall of the orbit and the periosteum. So this will lead to eccentric proptosis. It's not axial proptosis, like the eyeball will be protruding to sideways, or it could be protruding up or down based on where the subperiosteal abscess is. Wherever it is, onto the opposite side, the eyeball will be protruding. Okay, so that is eccentric proptosis. Next is orbital abscess. So orbital abscess is nothing but the pus that forms within the orbital soft tissue. And along with this, you will see severe proptosis, ecchymosis, ophthalmoplegia, and there will be pus which points below the conjunctiva. The pus which points below the conjunctiva, and we can confirm this by doing a CT scan. Uh, okay, then in this image, you can see this is a picture of subperiosteal abscess, and beneath that there is a picture of orbital abscess. So subperiosteal abscess is the pus that collects between the periosteum and the bony wall. That is that orange color you can see. So it will push the eyeball to one side and this eyeball will protrude. It will show eccentric proptosis. Now, orbital abscess is that within the soft tissue of the orbit, there is pus formation, pus collection. So, this will lead to very severe proptosis, and there will be chemosis and ophthalmoplegia, and the pus can like it will be so much that it will start to it will start going forward into the orbit, and it can reach till the conjunctiva, and it can um, protrude out from below beneath the conjunctiva. And in this is a patient, this is an image of the patient who has orbital cellulitis, and beneath that you can see the CT scan on the um, in the right eye. There is orbital cellulitis. You can see the inflammation and the eye ball being protruded outward. Okay, and the that abscess you can see. So next, the other complications is temporal or parotid abscesses. So the infection from the orbit can spread into the temporal or the parotid regions, and there can be formation of temporal and parotid abscesses there. Then the patient can have intracranial complications like cavernous sinus thrombosis and meningitis. This is like the infection is spreading from the orbit into the cranium. Intracranially, it is spreading. So there you can see cavernous sinus thrombosis and meningitis, and then it can spread into the blood and cause generalized septicemia. Next is, what are the investigations that you will do in the patient? You can take nasal and conjunctival swabs and give it for bacterial cultures to identify the causative organism. You can do a complete hemogram, and you will detect leukocytosis because of the infection. And then paranasal sinus X-ray should be done to identify the sinusitis. Most commonly, ethmoidal sinusitis will be there, which it is associated with this thing, orbital cellulitis. Then, if you do orbital ultrasonography, you will see that the patient has intraorbital abscess. Then, on a CT and MRI, when you do CT and MRI scan, you can differentiate between preseptal and postseptal cellulitis. It can also help us detect subperiosteal or orbital abscess. It can also detect if there is any intracranial spread of the infection. Also, it will help us decide when and from where we have to drain the orbital abscess. Next is treatment. So, orbital cellulitis is a very serious infection, and if you see a patient with it, you have to immediately start a very intensive antibiotic therapy. So, first, what you can do is that for the cephalococcal infection, you can give oxacillin plus ampicillin, or you can give vancomycin or cefotaxime or ciprofloxacin. In order to cover H. influenzae, you can give chloramphenicol in children. In order to cover anaerobes, you can give metronidazole. We can also give analgesics and anti-inflammatory drugs to counter the pain and fever. Can give topical antibiotic eye ointment, nasal decongestants. We can also, if the patient is in the hospital, at least twice or thrice daily, the patient should be re-evaluated to look for any progress or to see if the patient is worsening or not responding to the antibiotic therapy. So, in case the patient is not responding to antibiotics, or if the patient is having decreased vision, or there is presence of orbital or subperiosteal abscess, in such a situation, you have to go for surgical intervention. And in surgical intervention, what we will do is that if the orbit is swollen, red, and it is very tight, or if you can see that optic neuropathy is present, how will you identify that? RAPD will be positive. So, if optic neuropathy is present or if IOP is very elevated, in such a patient, you can do canthotomy or catholysis, like you are incising from the canthus to enter into the orbit. Or if the abscess points from under the skin or the conjunctiva directly, it's coming out, then you can do a direct incision from there and you can remove the abscess. Uh, Also, subperiosteal abscess can be drained by a 2 to 3 centimeter curved incision in the upper medial aspect. In most cases, it is necessary to drain both the orbit as well as the infected paranasal sinuses. I said ethmoidal sinusitis is the most commonly associated with orbital cellulitis. So if in most of the time both of this will be present, and when you're draining, you have to drain the orbit as well as the ethmoidal sinus. Fine. That's it about orbital cellulitis. Thank you.